Well, hello. I just got back from watching Suzume, the new Makoto Shinkai movie. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't go with any kind of a subtitle with the movie, but I guess they couldn't because I think the literal translation for the Japanese title is Suzume's door locking, which sounds more like an innuendo than anything. So I guess Suzume was the only thing they could come up with. Anyway, also just random aside, the movie, like everywhere I look, like Crunchyroll is promoting this anime for the most part, and they say, "Oh, it's Suzume. It's in theaters April 14th." It is April 13th, and this movie was readily available everywhere I looked. And multiple friends have also seen it all over the country. So I don't know why they said April 14th when it is very clearly available on the 13th. Very strange. But in any case, yeah, I watched this movie. It's a new Makoto Shinkai movie, and I guess it's important to. Actually, first off, let me just say this is going to be a spoiler-free review. It's not going to be a very in-depth review, and that's because I plan on doing a podcast with the Tokyo Podfathers. There are multiple people in the podcast who are going to go see it this weekend, so there will be a more in-depth review from me and my friends sometime, hopefully next weekend. I think that's going to be like my goal. Again, it kind of depends on when their availability though. So anyway, it's also kind of important to maybe explain my history with Makoto Shinkai, just how I feel about him, because expectations are kind of weighted based on your opinion of Makoto Shinkai's films going into this, and there were lots of expectations that this movie was going to be similar to his other works, particularly Your Name and Weathering with You. So I think Makoto Shinkai is an all right director overall, a very, very strong visual director more than anything. And believe it or not, when Your Name was coming out stateside, everyone would, well, not everyone, but like Funimation and whoever was in charge of promoting the movie was like, oh, Makoto Shinkai, he's going to be the new Miyazaki. And the thing is, I don't think it's unfair to say that Makoto Shinkai is kind of like a modern Miyazaki. Now, I don't really think that these directors have anything in common with each other in terms of like what they make, but I think that both of these directors make anime that can be watched and liked by people who don't watch anime. For people who think that anime sucks and is big, mega lame and shit like that. I think that those people would be fine with watching a Miyazaki film, and I think they would those same people would be fine with watching a Shinkai film. They are completely different directors because Miyazaki makes fantasy movies, but Shinkai is making movies about normal people. And until recently, honestly, he was just making kind of dramas, just like normal people with normal circumstances, I guess. Nowadays, with Your Name, starting with Your Name, I think he's done some more supernatural stuff, but it's still like normal people. It's like normal people who find themselves in weird supernatural circumstances. So that's very much what this is. It is like Your Name and Weathering with You in that regard at least. Um, and I think that this is a better direction because I just didn't really care for the stuff that I've seen before Your Name. I've seen 5 centimeters per second, which I thought was boring as shit. And then Garden of Words was, I remember it being okay, but it was very short. It was like 45 minutes, and it felt like it needed another 45 minutes. It felt like half a movie. So Your Name, I actually think that Your Name's really good. I know that's like the big normie movie, but like I think that it is a very very strong and effective movie. I would dare say that it is one of my favorite anime films of all time. I don't know if it's like masterpiece level, but again, it is very very effective in what it does. It tells a very very good story. It's just easy to like overall. I kind of think that's what Shinkai has been trying to be with these last three movies. He's been trying to be easy to like. And I kind of think that's why he's someone like Miyazaki. Like, I think anyone would like these movies. Weathering with You, I personally thought was contentious. Like, I thought it was fun, but there was like one side of me that kind of liked what was going on legitimately, and then there was another side of me that just thought everything was so stupid and ridiculous, particularly in the second half of it, that I'm just like, this movie's fucking stupid. So it's almost like I had like an ironic enjoyment, if you want to call it that. But I don't actually think ironic enjoyment is a thing, but it's like I was kind of liking it for the wrong reasons. Like I was laughing at the movie more than I was laughing with it. So yeah, that's kind of I'm kind of mixed on that movie. This one, on the other hand, I actually think this is a solid movie. I think Suzume is good. I don't think it's as good as Your Name. Um, but it's definitely not as like ridiculous and kind of laughably bad as Weathering God. So, um, and it's interesting, and I kind of have to explain this because I think a lot of people expected this to be like Shinkai's past two films. I think people expected Suzume to be like Your Name and Weathering with You, but that's not really what Shinkai does. Instead, what Shinkai's been doing, and Suzume is building off of this, is that is that each movie is similar to the last one he has done, but that's about it. So like Garden of Words, actually, honestly, Your Name isn't really anything like Garden of Words. It's just that there were characters in the Garden of Words that were in Your Name very briefly, and so he did that again with Weathering with You. The characters from Your Name show up in Weathering with You, but it's also very similar, like in plot and theme to Your Name. So Suzume is similar to Weathering with You, but it's not Your Name. Like, I don't think you can actually say that this is a similar film to Your Name. I did not really get any similarities with it. I mean, I guess there are some like visual callbacks, like when there's like a kind of intense bike ride, the doors opening and that kind of a that particular angle that was shown a couple of times, and maybe there was some things that I missed. But I honestly did not really get any sense that this was like Your Name at all. Just aside from, I guess, Shinkai's visual style, which is awesome. It's fantastic. I think that this is a very, very well made movie. This is a very well produced movie. I don't know if it's quite as good or creative as Weathering or Your Name, but it's pretty much on the same level. And there are some like really cool, interesting like visual tricks. Actually, you know what? Thinking about it, I don't know. I'd have to watch Your Name and Weathering again to kind of see how I feel about them visually. But like, honestly, Suzume does do some really cool stuff. There's like some kind of basically like, and again, I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just kind of saying what happens in the movie. Like the enemy, the conflict in this anime is that this girl has to close these doors around Japan that can cause disaster, and this disastrous force is kind of visualized with this weird like CG sort of force that goes upwards and shit, and it's like, and honestly, it's actually really really well done. It doesn't give me that UFO table like, oh, this is very clearly just some After Effects puke that they threw on their computers on top of 2D animation, and people like gush over that. Like I actually thought that the characters that the CG blended with the environment and the characters really really well. It's well composited. It's just well put together overall. Animation is of course fantastic, and I think that there was like a fun little animation with this one character who who turns into a chair early on in the film, which was definitely like a weird off-putting thing. One thing I will definitely say, and this is again without spoiling, is that the teasers for this movie and kind of like the synopsis for it made the movie sound way worse than it actually is. Because I can't be alone in thinking that I saw like, oh, teenage girl meets hot guy who turns into a chair for some reason and thinks and was like, okay, what the fuck is this shit? Where are we going with this? But honestly, it like watching it in the movie, it actually makes a lot of sense and it's fun overall. It's fine. I didn't really have any problem with that. I didn't really have many problems with the story. Um, what else? Oh yeah, but also, and I think the reason why that particular thing, like why does a character get turned into a chair? Because it makes for a really really interesting animation. It's this three-legged chair, or I guess a chair with a missing leg, that's just kind of like running on top of buildings and running through streets and stuff like that, and chasing after some weird looking cat. I think it was more of like a visual idea and just like how can we make a kind of unique and interesting looking animation. I think that's what was the point of making this sort of a plot point happen. So that was pretty cool. Like it's it's Shinkai, so it's well made, it's pretty, it has a lot of attention to detail. It's just very like soft overall. Now story wise is where I'm a little bit conflicted on because I didn't dislike the story like at all, and I can't really think of anything that I was like, bad about it. But it does have a lot of it does have a lot of things about it, and and it's not messy necessarily, but it doesn't feel consistent in tone the entire way through, if that makes sense. Basically, and again, without spoiling, I feel like this movie has a separate first and second act. Like the first half of the movie is basically it's honestly an action film. Like the first half of the movie is basically an action movie where this girl and this three-legged chair have to travel around Japan and close these doors before they create these massive earthquakes that will destroy parts of Japan. And it's like really intense. It's really like high energy. It's really like, oh my god! Especially early on, like this movie wastes no time getting into the plot. It's like 5 minutes in, you're just like, oh shit, things are happening. Shit is going down. So it gets going really really quickly and doesn't really let up until about halfway in. There's kind of like a big climax, and then afterwards they're kind of dealing with the fallout of that, and it really slows down overall. Like the movie just slows down, and I don't want to say it becomes like slice of lifey. It becomes more dramatic, I guess. Although there are some kind of slice of lifey parts to it. Like it becomes a bit more relaxed for a while, and then it kind of ramps up again at the very end. Um, so I don't know, and I personally was kind of not into that because I was really excited for the first half. I kind of thought that was just going to be the entire movie. I'm just like, I will watch an entire film of these girls trying to these girls. I said these girls. There's only one girl. I mean, there are multiple women, girls in this anime, but like, I was just excited to watch Suzume and this chair just go around and have to figure out how to seal these doors that kind of appear in weird places that they kind of play around with in different things. Like there was one that's just like it's just seems like it's a regular door, but then there's another one that's like it's on top of a Ferris wheel. So they gotta and then the Ferris wheel starts operating. So that kind of creates a whole new level of like intensity and drama and conflict. So I was just kind of interested in them playing around with that. I just kind of wanted to see that. So when that eventually stopped, I kind of got bored of the movie, and this is kind of where Shinkai's films in general struggle. They do have these really large emotional hooks to them, but there's not enough about the characters themselves to be really attached to them. I've never been able to appreciate a character in a Shinkai film much more than just like they're there. Like they're there and they're fine. I don't have an issue with them. They serve the plot well. They do what they need to. But then when they get into those big emotional hooks, I'm just kind of like, I don't care enough about this character to be emotionally invested in their trauma or stuff like that. So that sort of stuff that happens later on didn't really get me too much. Um, it's still pretty evocative, so it's not like I felt nothing watching this. But again, I'm just kind of like, yeah, good for you guys, I guess. Um, and yeah, so I didn't like the second half. I didn't like dislike it though. I wasn't just like sitting through the second half going like, oh man, this fucking sucks. This is bullshit. This is terrible. It didn't really feel like it dragged on either because there's enough that goes on moment to moment where it doesn't feel like the movie is extremely long. Even though the movie is fairly long, although I guess we have to change our standards for what long movies are now that everyone's making fucking 3 4 hour movies. But I think it's like 2 hours, maybe even 2:15. Um, so it wasn't particularly short because it does kind of have a lot that it needs to solve with the plot. Um, and there are lots of like different sort of like rules or and themes and things like that. It's not complicated. It's easy enough to follow along. there's not a whole lot that I could really pull apart and be like, oh, that didn't make much sense. Like there are a couple of things. I'll just say a black cat shows up and then something weird happens, and then it's just kind of like never explained. I mean, I understand the black cat and its purpose, but like why did it cause this really weird thing to happen and then the plot just like totally dropped it? I don't know. It's kind of strange, but maybe I'm just nitpicking. Maybe I'm just nitpicking. I'm just being that guy. So yeah, like it was fine overall. I just didn't like the inconsistent tone all that much. I was more excited for just Makoto Shinkai disaster film because that's honestly what I wanted after watching Weathering with You. I'm just like, man, the disaster aspects were really cool. I hope he does that next time around. And when I was in a way, I was excited for Suzume because when I saw that it was about this girl going around closing these doors that cause disasters, I'm like, oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted him to do. And I did kind of get that in the first half, but not so much all the way through. Um, so yeah, I think that's about it. I think I gave it like a 7. It's like a decent to strong 7. So I was even thinking maybe 8 out of 10. But I think Your Name's probably an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10 if I really feel like it. So it's a solid movie. It's good. If you go see it in a theater, you will probably be entertained by it. I'm sure there will be some people who will be wowed by it, but not a ton. And very few people will watch it thinking, wow, what a total piece of shit film. That was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And if you are one of those people, please get some help because I think you might have some kind of issue. Or you just hate anime that much. I don't know what to tell you. Or you hate guys with long hair. In which case, I don't know why you watched this. So basically, the guy in the movie, he's me. I'm him. So that's about it. But yeah, good movie. Should watch it. But if you miss it, maybe you won't be missing out on too much. Although it is more different than I expected because I was expecting Your Name Part 3. It's not Your Name Part 3. Maybe it's Weathering with You Part 2, but not even all that strongly of a similarity to Weathering with You. It just has some similar themes and concepts, but that's about it. It stands on its own. It's a fine entry in Shinkai's ever growing catalog, and so I'm looking forward to whatever he does next in about 3 years or so. So that's about it. Check out Tokyo Podfathers for a longer, more in-depth review. Again, hopefully sometime next week. But other than that, thanks for watching this one.